What are your thoughts right now with the UFC and the women's divisions and where it's heading? Because I think it's heading in a bigger and stronger spot than really some of these men's divisions.
I think it. I agree with you. And here's the thing: I don't think that they're getting the billing. We always thought that they weren't getting the billing. I don't think it's really changed that much. I really don't think it has. I don't think they've gotten the exposure. You see it for one fight. But if you notice, and I'm not trying to turn this into a sexist thing, it's not. But I think you really have to give credit where credit's due, and the amount of talent that you have in these divisions that they're not being utilized. That's why a lot of these fighters will end up going to Bellator, just like Kat Zingano did and such. How many fights do you actually see on a fight card that are female? 2? Maybe 3?
Usually 2. And if it's it's on the main event card, it's 1. It's usually 1.
Right. But if there's a title, maybe you might see a 3rd.
Yes.
Now, perfect example, this cookie cutter fight that's not happening, there was 2. There was 2. One of which was bad matchup, because nobody wants to see a rematch of 2 fighters where there's no controversy, there was no need for a matchup or anything like that. And then the other one were 2 up-and-comers that were 2 people that lost on The Ultimate Fighter God knows how long ago. And like I said, they cleared medicals. That's ultimately what it was. But when you look at the level of fighters that you have and the dominance that they have right now, it's basically, from a pound-for-pound standpoint, these are fighters that you should actually put in that same pound-for-pound column of talent that are with these guys like the men. Perfect example. When you look at some of these rankings, when they do the pound-for-pound, and I actually have it up right now because it's that funny. And obviously, this is the UFC rankings, so they can manipulate it however the hell they want.
Well, Dana White, he manipulates everything.
Well, that's more reason why you should have it up there. He has a women's pound for pound and a men's pound for pound. When the talent is, I see it so much more concentrated from the women compared to the watered down version of the men, you need to put them in the same category, and you need to treat them like that, even from on a financial standpoint, and take care of it, because you're gonna lose this talent. You're gonna lose this talent. You have Valentina, Amanda Nunes, Zhang, but even besides the champions, you have a lot of great fighters. Joanna is a beast. Let's be real. That girl will fight any. And I don't. When you look at her fight record, and yeah, she's had losses and this and that, but when you think about it, has she really lost that decisively? Personally, I thought she won the last fight.
I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
Okay.
I thought it was close, but she didn't win the fight.
And just the fact that you have 2 people that could say, one could say yes and one could say no. It could go back and forth. At the same time, if Joanna won that fight, would you really be that upset?
No, because I think both fighters were great.
But it was close.
And that was a great fight. One of the greatest fights I've ever seen the UFC ever had.
Right, and it was close. But that's what I'm saying. The competition, you have that level of competition where these fighters are going out and they're throwing down. Where after a 5-rounder, it's not a snooze fest, just like their main event was that same night, if you remember, with Romero and Stylebender being a championship bout. Go figure on that one, which I die laughing at. And there's still other fighters that I don't think are getting the credit they deserve. You still have Claudia Gadelha there. Like I said, you just lost Kat Zingano, which I thought was a big mistake. For whatever reason you lost her, that was the only girl that's beaten Amanda Nunes, and you could have had a lot of fun with that type of fight. Because other than Amanda Nunes, she came back from getting hurt with Megan Anderson, which she got an eyeball cut.
Right.
And that was in the beginning of the fight. Before that, she lost to Ronda. Or I'm sorry, Julia Pena on the 200 show.
Right.
Coming back from knee injury and her husband committing suicide.
Well, speaking of Ronda,
other than that, she had lost to Ronda. Before that, she was on a win streak to the point where she even beat Miesha Tate.
Well, speaking of Ronda, there was a story coming out from the WWE, and I actually, MMA Fighting website has really posted this, so I'm going to read this quickly. Ronda Rousey rips the effing ungrateful fans in the WWE won't ever return full-time. Former UFC champion Ronda Rousey transitioned from MMA to pro wrestling without skipping a beat, but it appears her days performing in front of an audience are almost over. While she never formally retired from fighting, Rousey has all but closed the book on the chapter in her life. And after 1 year with the WWE, Rousey left wrestling as well to start a family with her husband, UFC heavyweight Travis Brown. Now more than 1 year removed from her most recent wrestling match, Rousey admits she absolutely loved the atmosphere of the WWE, especially the camaraderie she built with the other performers. But being on the road for so many days out of the year took a serious toll on her body, which really started weighing in on her. I love the WWE. I had such a great time, Rousey said with Stevie O. Wild Ride podcast. I love all the girls in the locker room. Like, hell yeah. Running out there, having fake fights for fun is just the best thing. I love the choreography, and I love acting. I love theater. It's live theater. It's one of the last forms of live theater, and it is so fun. But I was basically doing it part-time, and I was away from home over 200 days in a year. When I did get home, basically I was sleeping deprived, and because you just don't have time to lay down and have your back rubbed, or my bottom vertebrae is like broken in half. They got me appraised like a house before I came to the WWE. And they're like, your back is broke. And I am like, oh shit. Didn't know that. Explained a lot. All in all, I'm not going to read the whole story. The whole story is she loved the atmosphere of the WWE, but it seems like her growth with the WWE is over. I think she does not want to do wrestling anymore. I think her plan is to have some kids and then probably move into acting in the movie theater, movies. That's what she wanted to do. She was in that Mark Wahlberg movie, if I'm not mistaken. She was also in that
She was in the
Steve.
She was in the Expendables. With
The
Sylvester
Expendables,
Stallone.
yes, and she was in the Mark Wahlberg movie that came out. No, it was a Mark.
in Entourage.
Yeah, she was in Entourage, but I'm not talking about that. Last year, she was in that Mark Wahlberg movie that came out in the middle of the year. I forget what it was called, but she had a pretty big part in that movie as well. But she wants to do movies. That's what she wants to do. I don't ever think you'll see Ronda Rousey full-time in the WWE. You might see her at WrestleMania or SummerSlam or one of the big events where she can bring in a good draw. But I don't think you're going to see Ronda Rousey in a WWE SmackDown or Raw anymore. And I do believe that Ronda Rousey will never fight in a cage again.
And that's fine. And I think that's fine. I don't go against and I don't hold anything against Ronda Rousey for any time off that she took or whatever. There's a lot of fighters that in the beginning, the thing is, and you have to look at it from a standpoint, women's MMA is similar to the way MMA was back in the early 2000s. You can't look at it as the same sport now. You can't. You have to give it its time to build up, just like we gave up the rest of the UFC time to build up.
Right.
You have to give the divisions time to build up. The same thing with the fighters, because let's be real, outside of the UFC, it's not easy for these women to get fights, to basically get their seasoning. Not as easy as the men. You see it from the amateur division, because how many guys, that's why the minute you'll see a promoter get a fighter, whether it's amateur or pro, they will hold on to that like at the golden goose, because how many fighters do you out there, pro or amateur, do you actually think can take a punch, deliver a punch, make for a good fight, and then come back? It's not. It's really tough. I've even been on the side point where I've actually had female fighters that I've trained, and within a 3-month span, I've had 4 opponents pull up on one.
Right.
4 locked up, and then they all pull out, one, boom, 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 all the way up until the week before. So if you see that, regardless of what level, it's not that easy. So I do feel bad. Maybe it's the dad in me that comes out when I see it, but it's not easy for these women to develop as fast because they don't have the resources. When I say resources, it's not their work ethic or anything like that. They don't have. That's why, unfortunately, you see 200-pound guys wrestling with 115-pound women at practice. What the hell is that? But unfortunately, that's what you're stuck with. So you can't give Ronda a hard time. I understand she lost, and she lost big to Holly Holm, and people can say whatever they want about
Amanda Nunes kicked her ass.
But even before that, Holly damn near took her damn head off. It's probably still rolling around someplace down under, on the other side of the world. But with that being said, she did what she did. She brought women's MMA basically to the mainstream that a lot of other fighters tried to do. Gina Carano, Tara La Rosa. These are probably names that nobody's ever even heard of. With
Gina Carano is...
Well, other than a Star Wars
Strike Force.
You know what I mean? Some people don't even understand what Strike Force was, or Elite XC Pro that goes even further back. But these women tried to do what Ronda did. Unfortunately, they couldn't.
How about Dream? Remember Dream?
Oh, I remember Dream. Dream was actually good, just like Bushido
Great.
and Pride. Pride was good. And that's ultimately what happens. Now you have to deal with only the UFC, and the UFC, nothing else. If it didn't happen in the UFC, it almost seems like it didn't happen.
That's why I feel bad for Bellator, because Bellator tried to do the pay-per-view thing. It just didn't work out. They tried to bring fighters from the UFC, but they brought really broken up fighters like Rampage and Ortiz and Liddell. They brought all these fighters over there at the ends of their career, really, when they retired.
You could tell because they were in heavier weight classes. You have 205 guys or middleweight guys now fighting heavyweight.
Right.
That was the first sign that you knew that they weren't peak athletes anymore, and it was harder for them to make weight and such. So what did you think you were going to get? You were going to get almost a parody of what they once were. So that's what you get.
I think that the UFC has to find a way to bring the men's divisions back to promise. And to me, when you look at where Conor McGregor is, and I don't think Conor's going to fight that many fights. I really don't. I think Conor might fight maybe 2 or 3 more fights at best, and he's going to retire. Conor McGregor, he said that he wanted to retire at the age of 30. I think he's 30 now or 31 right now. I think he's going to probably be done probably in the next year or 2. He's going to be done. He's got his whiskey. He's got his endorsements, all the different things. He's got his fight team, and he's now wants to get his hands in boxing and getting boxers to fight under his brand. I mean, he's doing everything. Look, he just signed Manny Pacquiao. So Conor McGregor is trying to find every way to make money. And I think that's what he is. He's a self-promoter. He's like Mayweather. He's like Oscar De La Hoya. I think his goal is to promote and make money through the fighters that he brings in under his organization. So I think you're going to probably see Conor McGregor fight 2 or 3 more fights, and he's done. I don't know what John Jones is doing. I don't know how many fights John Jones has left in him. I do believe he's the best fighter we've ever seen in the UFC in a very, very long time. I still think Anderson Silva was the greatest, one of the greatest fighters of all time, the way he did it. And the fighters he fought in the 9 years he just dominated. He beat the best fighters in his division. John Jones, he's right now in a division where there really isn't any fighters that really challenges him. Reyes fought a very good fight, but in the long run, he didn't know how to fight in those championship rounds. He wasn't ready for John Jones. There is no other fighter right now in that division that can challenge him and take him all the way to 5 rounds. Gustafsson was the only one that did it, and that fight, I believe Gustafsson was absolutely robbed in the first fight. The second fight, John Jones completely dominated Gustafsson. So he had his chances. And I look at where Conor McGregor and John Jones is on their careers. John Jones can't stay out of trouble. Conor McGregor, is in and out of trouble, and the guy just wants to make money. John Jones, he's not like Conor McGregor. He's not trying to go out there and buy a whiskey and sell a whiskey. He's not out there trying to sell and bring in advertisements through other avenues of car dealerships and whiskeys and food, Fridays or Miller's Ale House. He's not trying to do that. John Jones is a fighter. That's what he is. He's not a self-promoter. They're different types of fighters. But where is the UFC going right now? What fighter is next? Who's next up? I don't want to hear Khabib. Khabib is 27, 28 years old. He's on the tail ends of his career too. How many years do you think Khabib has? 3? Maybe 4? I don't think Khabib, he wants his money fights. He fought Conor. I think he made like $3 or $4 million off that fight. He wants to make more money fights. He wants to fight Ferguson, even though I think he keeps ducking him. I really do believe he's afraid of Tony Ferguson. And I do believe whenever Tony Ferguson actually fights him, he's going to whip his damn ass.